Alright guys, had a couple of requests for this. When I did the mud splatter, I thought I was recording. I'm not sure what happened, but I didn't get any of the mud splatter recorded, which kind of sucks, kind of pisses me off. But anyway, these are here's the mud on this 152 millimeter Soviet howitzer. Russian, sorry, it's not Soviet era, this is Russian era. As you can see, I put in a couple multi-layers of different color mud to indicate different areas that it's driven through, and of course dry mud versus wet mud. We've kept the paint damage minimal, just mud damage. These were fairly clean, well-kept vehicles when they came out of barracks and went down into Chechnya. You can see all this mud splatter here, guys. This was just a matter of loading up the paintbrush with a different MIG pigment, holding the paintbrush up and giving it a shot with an airbrush, just with no paint in it, and that'll splatter it over. You can also do like I did up at the top. You just take an airbrush or a paintbrush, load it up, and spit the paint on, spit the pigments on. That works like a dam. That's one thing you'll see a lot of is mud splatter on the real vehicles. You don't necessarily see a lot of it on models, but real vehicles, absolutely. Things up here you need to keep in mind. Okay, how are they getting into this vehicle? Well, they're going to be getting up and along on the steps. So make sure this area is really muddy where they're going to be walking and stuff. As you can see here, there's not a lot of solid buildup on the road wheels because it's going to get pushed out along the side of the tracks. Depending on where they've driven, if they're still in thick, heavy mud, this may or may not be mudded up, but that's something you're going to have to decide when you put it on your base. This is probably going to be up on a little bit more drier ground. I'm just showing that it's been through mud. Here's the back end of this vehicle. Once again, mud buildup on the tracks, on the back here, on the fenders, lots of mud splatter on the back, and take your splatter all the way up. Now if I was going to redo this kit, I'd probably add some boxes and stowage to it, but the way it is, the way it is. Up top here, you can see where the muddy footprints are, because you know what? To get into this vehicle, you're going to have to climb up through here, climb up into here, clamber on here. We could even have a little bit more mud into here. And if the guys are coming in on this side, step up here, mud into this side track. There's a handhold there. Step, lots of mud up on the side of the boots when the guys are getting in. Same with over here. The driver is going to be probably coming out, clambering on here, mud. So make sure you get all that speckly and spotted. Basically, I kept this fairly clean paint-wise. Not a lot of paint damage. Not a lot of rain streaks or anything. It's basically a clean vehicle that on its way to deployment drove through some mud holes and hit some muddy sections. So as you can see here, we've got multiple colors of mud through there. Now you're seeing it's a little bit shiny. I went over this and I really didn't like the flat look of the paint, because most of the ones I've seen there are slightly semi-gloss. So I did go over and do a quick little light shot of Future over top of this to give it that semi-gloss appearance that most of these tanks have. And I did, I missed the mud parts, but there's a little bits under here. I'll probably have to run back over under here and throw some more flat on to make it look just a little bit drier, especially up along the back up along in the hull here. But then again, you know what? If we're going through more wet conditions, yeah, you could probably have it a little bit shinier. It depends on the circumstance of where that's in. If we're in the middle of a rainstorm, well, you know what? It's going to be wet and shiny. So here's the front fenders. Lots of splatter under there. Lots of splash up in the top. Now remember, we kept the tracks fairly clean because the tracks are moving and they do tend to throw off the mud quite a bit. Even in really heavy muddy conditions, as long as those tracks are moving, they're kicking the mud out and they're coming out reasonably clean. We could probably add a little bit in here, but honestly these tracks are so damn nice I didn't want to add a whole bunch of schmeg to it. So like I said, I wanted this to appear to be more have gone through a muddy field, muddy surfaces, and maybe back on the blacktop or back onto a little drier area. So, you know, there's places where, you know, you're going to get the mud, the splash, where the guys are stepping and all that kind of stuff. So you need to look at real vehicles, and I'm around a lot of heavy vehicles and a lot of mud, way more mud than I'd care to admit. So you see mud. Mud doesn't always go where you think it's going to go. Sometimes it winds up in the damnedest places. Like this big mud splash up there is kind of, well, what's that doing up there? Well, you never know. You know, you may have got a ball of mud or something stuck in there, and it kicked up and flew back up there and splattered on there. You'd be surprised the amount of schmeg you get on a vehicle when you're out in muddy conditions. The only thing I don't really like the way it turned out, I don't like the way this turned out. I'm going to have to address that. I'm not crazy about that. It's a little too heavy and a little too coarse for me. So we're working on it here. There's still a little bit more to do. I got sidetracked on a couple of other builds and a couple of other things. This kind of got put back on the back shelf, back burner. So there is the, is that an AS2? I'm gonna have to look at my I'm gonna mind like a steel trap, boys. I need take a look at my references of what exactly this is. The 152mm Soviet self-propelled gun. How's that? So there it is. It's mudded up. It's put aside for now because I need to get some modern Russian tankers. I know Zvezda has some, and tank. Okay, here's a call. Anybody who knows where I can get tank resin figures securely. There's a couple of Russian websites I was on were kind of hinky. I wasn't sure about putting my credit card on them. I need to find some tank modern Russian tank figures. Tank is the resin company. They're one of the few resin companies that make Russian modern soldiers, and I really need some. So if anybody in Europe there has a good access to some tank modern figures, let me know, PM me, and we'll work something out. That would be awesome. One other thing, you notice how clean these are compared to the rest of the vehicles? I forgot to put them on the first time. So that's another reason why I glossed them. You also notice the foobar, where this one's located, and where this one's located. I should have started on this side because there's a fitting right there. Had I put this one up higher, it would have looked a little bit better. I've got to put some schmeg and mud on it and then clean it off like somebody came up with a rag and wiped off the symbol for Mother Russia. So that's why those are so clean. It's not finished yet. But I've had a couple of requests to see where this is going with its mud. So there you go, Mark. I'll get this posted up right Chicken Louie. Later, guys.